All right, I think we are live.
Hello.
Jackie, Steve, how are you guys today?
So
Great.
good.
How's it going?
Fantastic. Hope everybody is enjoying their summer so far.
Oh yeah.
Any so Jackie's I learned is in Cape Cod for the month of July. I know Steve just got back from what sounds like an awesome vacation. Any fun stories to share from your travels?
I was in Lisbon and Portugal, so did a little visit to wine country out there. Porto wine, I guess, fun and interesting stories. For those of you that don't know, port wine is stronger than regular wine. So I knew that going in, but some people I was with didn't know. They got themselves in trouble, but they lived. No permanent damage done.
That sounds like a fun vacation. How about you, Jackie? How's the Cape?
Good. So we're in Wellfleet. It's an amazing town on the Cape. It's kind of closer to Provincetown. And they have some natural ponds that are like spring fed. They're amazing. And the town beaches are incredible. And my miniature dachshund is obsessed with chasing sticks in the waves. So he's like this big, and he's like famous in the town of Wellfleet.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, he sounds like a great swimmer.
Hmm.
Well, that's good to hear. I wish I had an exciting story to share. I've been pretty hunkered down. I'm in Michigan. We've had a lot of family visitors over the summer months, being close to Lake Michigan, but we're enjoying ourselves and we'll hopefully pick up travel towards the latter portion of the summer and in early fall. So yeah, I wanted to give it a couple minutes just to let people join. But for those that have joined, first off, welcome. We are very, very excited to have hopefully what will be a pretty thoughtful discussion and an outcome-based discussion, really focused on our core topic, which is how to increase enterprise win rates. And I was thinking about this webinar, if we've been planning, and I'm sure most sales managers, individual contributors are feeling what everybody feels this time of year. We were just talking about vacations, we were just talking about travels. And in my mind and experience over the months of July and August, when everybody, as they should be, are enjoying their families, friends, kids home from school, it's tougher to really wrap your arms around a very strategic enterprise deal and maintain that deal control. So the whole purpose of today is to really just to provide tactics around how to continue to accelerate those enterprise deals, how to look at data, for our awesome panelists to talk about metrics, scoring, things that they look at with their revenue operations team, sales operations team, as well as individual contributors, just to increase the overall win rates and to get those deals across the finish line, as the group is forecasting them. So, Andy, if you don't mind, if you could please just share the deck, we'll get through just a little bit of housekeeping before we get into it. So first off, just wanted to let everyone know that today will be recorded. So we'll follow up with the deck. We'll follow up with the recording. Hopefully there's some good snippets that we can follow up with on social and LinkedIn. We'd also ask that folks that are attending today, request to link up with us if you have any follow-up questions just based on today's content. We'd love to stay engaged with you throughout. So lastly, feel free to engage, feel free to ask questions. We'll try our best. Andy, feel free to chime in if there are any burning questions for myself, Jackie, or Steve throughout. But the material that we are going to cover today is number one, after we get through some introductions, just talk through the process, mapping between stages of a selling cycle. All organizations have, whether it's Salesforce built out, your CRM built out, of actual stages that you should be progressing through an enterprise cycle. But what those typically miss in my mind are what are the actions that need to take within those stages? What's the data that you need to look at between those stages? And hopefully we'll have some good advice of things to be doing while your deal isn't moving and as you aren't progressing those stages and how you can get to that next stage of the funnel. We also want to provide some insight just around looking at your pipeline. How do you analyze it? What are some key metrics that you should be looking at? And then overall tactics to really progress that pipeline. And then ultimately, what leads all salespeople to be coming back to sales, which is closing the actual deal, getting that funnel closed out, and having those wins throughout to get you to that closed one deal. And then hopefully we'll wrap up with some questions, some final thoughts before letting everyone get out of here for the day. Andy, if you want to move along. Perfect. So just a quick introduction to myself. My name's Eddie Hansen. I'm the president and CEO of Prolific. Just a quick introduction of Prolific. We're a Salesforce native partner. Our key focus and what we solve for is really the challenge that most enterprise and strategic sellers experience, which is extracting data from CRM into PowerPoint, into Google Docs to build out your quarterly business review, to build out those key account plans. And our mission is to turn account planning into an every week, every month motion, and very much so action-based, to bring that collective strategic team together to help progress deals in a more timely manner and increase those deal cycles, and focusing on things like relationship mapping, identifying cross-sell opportunities, and working towards a central strategy to get deals done. So thank you guys for the opportunity to speak. I'll be quiet for a couple minutes. Jackie, if you want to go, then Steve, just with a quick personal and company introduction, that'd be great.
Sure. Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Jackie Leahy. I'm actually a former kindergarten teacher who ended up being a BDR and leader in BDR. And at my third startup, I was at Link Squares, hire number 10, first lady. I was brought on to build the BDR team. And when I joined, we're at 350K ARR, and we got to 9 million in 2 years, 0 marketing hires. So it was all cold outbound. And through that process, I ended up falling totally in love with Salesforce. I was that accidental admin, just went crazy. So I've been on the consulting side since 2020, and I started my own agency almost 2 years ago. We're a team of 10. We focus on smaller companies, like under 200 employees. And the thing is, the magic's already there. We just gotta activate it. We do month-to-month technical expertise for the Salesforce and HubSpot ecosystems.
Love it. Thanks, Jackie. Steve, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm Steve Benson. I'm the CEO of Badger Maps, which, like Prolific, is another application that works with the Salesforce ecosystem. We also work with the other large CRMs that are out there. And the thing that we do for these environments is we bring a mapping and routing application to those ecosystems. So the ability to build a route for a person, a field salesperson, build a route, make decisions around who to focus on when they're in the field, who their most important customers are, given the constraint of they're going to be driving over here. So that's sales mapping and routing. And the other thing that we do is also in sales mapping, which is build out the territories on a map in the first place. So you have 200 sales reps across the country. How do you break those? How do you build out the territories and break the country up into 200 fair territories? And then as things move around and you want to make this territory 20% more of this or 10% less of that, being able to do that and reallocate that across the country instantly in a way that makes sense. So those are the things that we're focused on.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. That's very much needed in the ecosystem, Salesforce ecosystem, and just RevOps and sales leadership ecosystem as a whole. So we've got an awesome panel between these two. Look forward to the discussion. Yeah, if we want to move along, the first section that we really want to cover is process mapping between stages, and just looking into the overall pipeline, analyzing that pipeline. So you, as an individual contributor, as a sales leader, can make great decisions as you're continuing to execute the pipeline. Because while we're going to talk through plays, while we're going to talk through strategies today, I think it's good to get in the mindset of every deal is different. There are best practices, and the data is going to be different across each stage that you're working across those key accounts that you're looking to close. So Jackie, I'll start with you. You've obviously got a amazing, great reputation, and historical data points in former companies in the RevOps world. When you think about and start to look at process mapping between various stages in the selling cycle, what does that look like in your mind, and where would you recommend that you get started?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. Do you mind stopping sharing so I can share mine?
Hmm.
Um, so I am here to bring the joy of flowcharts to the world. So here we go. I'm putting a link to this in the chat, and I'm very handsy. Like when I think of what's happening with operations, like I literally need to map it out. So this is like a little template, and it's got all sorts of other templates in it. But here's the main gist. I want to think about the revenue engine as a system, right? And I think companies like to do, and people like to do what we're already good at. So I remember when I was leading a BDR team and I was like, oh, we got to get drift chat, blah, 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 blah. Well, I was already good at converting, like getting leads and converting. That wasn't our problem. So making sure that you're taking a look at the whole system and figuring out where your main constraint is, and focusing on that. And so this is a winning by design bow tie. So you can, if you are interested in that, there's all sorts of benchmarks for what good looks like in terms of conversion rate, volume, and time. And here's how I look at the customer journey. Of course, this is sort of the new logo, yay. And the name of the game is recurring impact equals recurring revenue. So you want to get that first impact quickly, and it's really important to make sure everyone's on the same page about this is actually what we're doing. I know you're upset in sales land because you can't click the button to get the same doc gen that you used to get. I know, but let's look at the let's look at the process in general. And I'm always trying to simplify, like to heck with ideal, hello, adequate. By the time you roll out something extra special, well, the time has passed. You've lost time on something else. So really making sure that you're validating the idea with your end users and iterating on that. And so, for example, here's just a very simple lead process, right? Open, working, connected, either convert to op, DQ, or nurture. Make sure you got a reason, right? Just super duper simple. Here is also I like colors and making things pretty. So here's a little library of what I use to map out processes. And I do this. This is basically, I get paid to do my hobby, which is amazing. So here are some of the templates that you're going to get. This is a revenue engine process map. So this is really focused on the account. If you're doing account-based go to market, it literally takes from soup to nuts all of this. Do they respond to the outbound prospecting? Yes or no? So it kind of puts in all sorts of what are the automations, what's happening behind the scenes. This is probably the most important thing that I harp on with my clients is getting really crispy about the exit criteria for your stages. What is needed for it to become an opportunity, and again, like what is needed to occur, yes, no, binary, objective, what needs to be true for it to move to the next stage. And ideally, you're going to want one thing, three things maximum. Because if you're trying to track everything, you're really tracking nothing. So pull it back, bare minimum. And always, if you possibly can, get that data from a neutral source, like activities, making it an automatic trigger, because we love salespeople. We do not trust data entry from salespeople. The next resource in here is a prioritization matrix for if you're doing cold outbound. And if you are doing a CRM migration, HubSpot to Salesforce or Google Sheets to Salesforce, I also give you a little CRM migration template. So those are here. And so you can make your own copy and then go right to town. And for example, I was on a call with a BDR team. They want to make sure they have a trailing 30-day hold rate on first meetings, right? Okay, so what's happening? It's one thing to like yell at people, but no, let's actually get that hold rate. So mapping out the process, making sure if nothing happens, it's gonna go to reschedule. Like have a failure path for everything. End of rant.
I love it. First off, an amazing framework, and all of it resonated with me. But something in particular is your exit criteria as you think about the process. And I've experienced it. My sales team has experienced it at other teams, but we have these stages. How do we know when to move it to the next stage? And I would say the best salespeople I've run into, I don't want to say they don't want to move it to the next stage, but they're paranoid about moving a deal to the next stage because they wanted to make sure that there was value given throughout each stage of that selling cycle. So whether it's you working with your RevOps team, you working with your management team, and really defining what that exit criteria is really important to replicate wins across the enterprise, because they are so strategic, so hairy. There's a lot of people that need to say yes. And I've developed this many supporters before moving to the next stage, et cetera. So thank you for all of that amazing insight, Jackie. And Steve, over to you. It's obvious you're a hands-on CEO. It's awesome how hands are you on with your sales strategy and execution throughout the organization. I'd love to hear how you work with your operations team, with your leadership team, to poke holes and I guess diagnose different issues within the pipeline. And on top of that, do you have any certain processes for understanding what certain reps are doing differently, impacting conversion rates between stages? And would love to get your perspective at the CEO level, how you get your hands on and things that are important to you as you're analyzing those stages.
Well, first off, in terms of hands-on, I think it's super important as someone leading a company to have meetings with the sales team, with the people that are interacting with your new deals. You get a pulse from that interaction that it's hard to get from other places. The people that are actively working the deals, knowing the nitty-gritty of those deals, where are things at, what competitors are there, what are the advantages that we have, what are people asking for, so that you can then guide product to solve future problems. I meet with my entire sales team individually and my entire CSA team individually, and then the leaders of like the support teams and that sort of thing individually once a month. And the reason I do that is because I feel like I get my finger on the pulse. That's where there's so much action happening. So, in terms of how does I guess that helps me, your question about, how I get involved with individual reps, and a part of my goal in these conversations is to see where I can help them move the ball downfield. Is there something I can unstick? Is there something I can help? But more importantly, it's to understand get my finger on the pulse of what's going on in the marketplace, so that I can guide the other parts of the organization in such a way that allows the sales team to be more successful. In terms of operations and your questions there around, what work do I do in operations, and to poke holes in the pipeline, to understand what's going on in the pipeline. I think honestly, Jackie's bow tie was is a great place to start, right? And she taking it, looking at a deal and seeing where it is, and then thinking about all the deals in terms of, and the CRM's obviously, the data capture there is really important. Understanding, like, I think her bow tie had everything from like first getting to know the customers, first getting to know about you, to you're teaching them things, to there's been a closed deal and now you're onboarding them, and looking to upsell the deal, renew the deal. I think it's really important to break that up into as many slices as you can. And it doesn't have to be 4 slices. I think a lot of people would have 4 or 5 deal stages and kind of stop there. And the CSA team or the customer success team would have different ways of categorizing their customers. But the more ways you can slice that and look at people going through the funnel, or I guess if it's a bow tie, left to right, the more you can understand why did something go wrong here, or why did something get stuck here, and what percentage of all of our deals are getting stuck at each one of these phases, or aren't going forward. If you do that and kind of keep your finger on that, then you can see what your customers really need, where they're getting tripped up. Do they need better educational materials to at certain stages in getting to know you? Do they need a trial that shows them this or this? What do they need? A feature that you're not currently providing? Were they looking for something slightly different than what you're providing? Breaking that funnel or that bow tie down into as many pieces as you can, and then measuring each deal that goes from one stage to the next, can be a really, I'd say that's one of the more important things that you can do from an operations and leadership perspective, to understand the pipeline and actually improve the whole business to grow that pipeline in the future.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic advice. It's easy as a sales leader, individual contributor, to take a take a lick to the chin, lose a deal at a certain stage in the process. And I've worked with a lot of very positive sales reps, and it's a good quality to have. Let's move on to the next one. Let's find the next deal. Let's work the next opportunity. But all salespeople and all operations folks, I've noticed it's very important to look back, but before you look forward. It's also important to analyze the multitude of reasons that you just described as to why deals stall, or why deals do not close, and it's an opportunity to get better. So fantastic advice. Thanks for sharing. So before moving along to getting a bit more granular into tactics, um, I'd say, how do you guys both think sellers at the individual level can self-diagnose their own deals, without having to reach out to operations, without having to reach out to sales leadership? And that's not coming from a place to where you should be embarrassed to ask questions or you can't ask questions, but there's a lot of individual time throughout the day to where people are wrapped up in other things, other meetings, and you need to make split decisions. So just kind of the mindset or things that you would be doing from a day-to-day basis as an individual contributor to self-diagnose where they're at in the deal cycle, and to start poking their own holes within their deals. Jackie, you've worked with a lot of sellers within your business, and prior to doing what you're doing now, would love to hear your perspective and what you've seen, what you coach.
I was typing instead of listening to your question. What was your
No,
question?
yeah, no problem. So it's more just around how do you self-diagnose your own deals if you don't have the resources at that minute at your disposal to get advice from operations, to get advice from sales leadership, the overall mindset you'd be putting yourself in, and things you'd be doing day to day within that downtime where you need to make that split decision.
Well, I'll give you my personal advice. So I am someone who needs to process things externally. So I can think about it all day and I'll just like get stuck in the same little rut. So what get a buddy, have a friend, be like, hey, I'm gonna talk through, and pick your, if it's medic or spiced, if you're winning by design, or band, whatever it is. Just talk through where the situation is. And I guarantee, like, you won't be half done. And you'll be like, oh, I see it. I see exactly what needs to be done. Sometimes it's just really like that jumble, shake it up, new view, and then you'll see, oh, you know what? I was counting on this person to be a champion, but you know what? They have no riz. How can I make my champion charismatic and influential? What support can I give them? So really taking a fresh look at what's happening.
Yeah. Great perspective. Steve, anything from you before wrapping up and moving on?
Yeah, I think as an individual sales rep who's looking to learn more, do better, figure out where can I make improvements? And I think a very similar analysis to what a sales leader would do on the pipeline, kind of thinking across the entire thing, you can do as an individual sales rep. You can run your own numbers, which frankly often get lost at a managerial level because it's more common to be looking at the whole team. Whereas a manager is not in all your day-to-day interactions. And so if you can analyze your interactions and think about them and be honest with yourself, you can try to say, hey, where did I do well there? Where could I have done better? Where did that go wrong? Where did that go right? And if you can identify certain areas of the pipeline that you could do better in, or if you see someone on your team who is really good at something, you can go to that person and say, hey, could I shadow you on how you do this? How do you do this? Can we sit down and have a coffee and talk about it? It's often the expertise is on your team. And if it's not, if it's something, if you identify an area that you could do better on, that you don't see anyone around you that can do, that's a time to bring in an expert, or to look at the training resources that are available around the web. That there basically any question, there's going to be a great video on YouTube that explain that can take you through things and allow you to sharpen your sword and up level your game.
Yeah, totally. And I'll say I know from experience at Prolific, all of our best ideas in the direction of the company, especially related to our go to market, comes from our team. I do not have all of the answers when it comes to how to sell a deal, but we encourage reps to step up and say, "I'm experiencing this. I think we should solve it by doing this, this, and this. What do you think?" And 90% of the time they're great ideas. So I would give everybody on this call the confidence to step up, give those ideas to your management team, give those ideas to your revenue operations team, because that's what's going to progress the company. That's what's going to make you a shining star, and have the confidence to do that, because the best ideas I've seen always come from the field, who are living it day in, day out. So moving along, I know we want to discuss some actual tactics and how to continue to progress deals, different sales plays or tactics that have worked. And there's thousands of them out there. All companies have particular sales plays or tactics that they encourage their teams or their clients to use to progress those middle to later stage deals. Steve or Jackie, whoever'd like to go first, I'd love for you guys to highlight maybe one or two specific tactics that you've implemented or coached in the past. And also, I think it's good to talk through learning experience. Maybe describe an example of a tactic that has worked, that you've either inherited from a different company, somebody that you've learned from, and maybe as well a tactic that went south and that you've had to learn from in the past. So any specific selling tactics that you guys would like to describe that either worked for your company or worked for you in the past?
Yeah, I've got one that jumps off the page that's related to this. And the first, well, two things. First thing, when I look at this, I think it's really useful for a company that's not doing this, to split out your new business reps versus your expansion reps and have that be two different teams. It's a little painful to have that baton pass between someone who's just in charge of new business, and then once the deal is closed, they have to pass that baton to someone whose job it is to manage the customer long term, manage their success. Manage in software, we generally call these customer success reps or customer success associates. CSAs, but CS, like the really helps the hunter reps focus on getting new business, and really helps the farming reps farm and manage the customer success. They often, on the expansion customer success side, they often have a much deeper product expertise, whereas like the new business rep may have a better understanding of like the market and the competitors, and the ability they have the ability to figure out and qualify, hey, this is a great deal, or oh, actually, what you are looking for is this. And I mean, even the difference between Prolific and Badger Maps, right? Like both are sales mapping tools. They have nothing to do with each other, right? So like one of our sales reps could be talking to someone who wants account-based mapping like Prolific does, not territory mapping like we do. Totally different. So that's the first thing that jumped off the page at me, is just the importance of splitting these two things out between hunters and farmers, AEs and CSAs is the way we think about it. The second thing that jumps out, like a specific tactic that you asked for that's helpful here. I think this is on the new business side. Something that
Mhm.
I think it is a challenging time. You alluded to it earlier, the summertime, and it's hard to manage an enterprise deal through to close in the summertime because different people are on vacation. I think people vacation deeper and harder now in a post-COVID world than they used to.
Yeah.
Um, and just really go offline. And a lot of times it's someone that you need in the deal. And I think the specific tactic that you can use to navigate this as best you can is through deeply leveraging your sponsor, deeply knowing what the organization looks like, and how everything's related becomes more and more important. But you got to have that sponsor being your eyes and ears in the company, helping you navigate who's on vacation right now, who actually is going to be involved in this deal, who needs to approve the legals, who needs to approve the finance, how is a deal like this done at this company? Because your sponsor is really the only decision maker in an enterprise sale, especially the larger it gets.
Mhm.
And I think purse strings are relatively tight the past few years, just because interest rates are so high. There's less money floating around the economy, so people have tightened up a little bit. Um, and I think in the summertime, as we mentioned, the vacation thing is a particular challenge. But one strategy and tactic that you can use, and this is highly tactical, obviously, but you can do a meeting ask your sponsor to do a meeting with you, um, and before there's an actual meeting, and their homework before that meeting. So before you meet or pitch the broader team, before you have the important like moving forward meeting, have your sponsor do kind of backdoor work. Have them talk to the people that are involved, the key influencers, figure out what their objections are, what their concerns are, what are they worried about, and that way you'll be equipped and armed to address them. In a perfect world, you would even arm the sponsor to be able to address them for you, because they have a lot more credibility than you do. So if you can create the marketing content and the kind of the executive air cover messaging that can help address those things, you can get it to your sponsor. You're like, oh, that was their objection. Here's a white paper on that, or
Mhm.
here's a couple slides on that, or here's how I would answer this email. But it's all getting them to do a pre-meeting with the key people before you have kind of before you are getting in front of people
Mhm.
can be really helpful.
Yeah, I love that strategy. And it's one that I coach on as well. And one, it's very tactful, but two, done right, it's really important to come into that meeting educated, buttoned up, and having a strong point of view. One thing that hits home to Prolific is related to multi-threading. And it's easy to say I'm multi-threaded because I've had conversations with 5 people, 10 people, 25 people in very strategic deals. But checking yourself on that multi-threading within those pre-meetings. And what I recommend is always pulling up some sort of org chart, some sort of relationship map coming into your champion or influencer within the deal, and say, typically to get a deal done at XYZ company, we need alignment with these business units, these personas. Right now, we're seeing some gaps within this multi-threaded exercise across these different divisions. Here's my point of view as to how we should collectively pull together and come to them with a point of view to ensure that they are a supporter of us. When we think about the board table and the 10, 15 people that are sitting around and need to say yes in order for this deal to go through. So that type of pre-work and coming in with a visual, I've noticed that a lot of your champions will begin to open up once they see that visual and say, oh, there really are gaps that I didn't think about in how we get a deal done internally or how decisions are made internally. So getting that represented visually for them in front of the meeting with a point of view around each persona is really, really important, and it's worked well in the past. Um, Jackie, quick question for you. It's very obvious just based on what you shared with us earlier in your templates. One, that you're very metrics driven, which is fantastic, as well as very process driven. When you work with selling organizations, what type of metrics are you looking at to proactively help sales teams identify where tactics are working and where the strategy is working and where it might not be working?
Yeah. Well, the first question I have, is your pipeline stuck or is it stale?
Mm-hmm.
Because uh, it might be a lead generation, it might be an awareness, it might be a qualification problem. Either you're letting too many things in or you're not actually targeting the right people. So taking a look at, I love titles, like slicing and dicing what's your engagement by title. For example, when I was at Link Squares, we sold a legal tech software to in-house legal teams. So we were, VP of legal, general counsel. Well, guess what? I was slicing and dicing some leading indicators of, reply rates, sequence success, people connecting on LinkedIn. And actually, the title that was most receptive, closed the fastest and the easiest and easiest to onboard were VPs of finance.
I love that.
So sometimes just like coming in with like full on curiosity will kind of do the trick. But focus on leading indicators, and especially if it's and making sure that you have at least one metric that the rep can actually control. So an effort based. So you can kind of make sure is it a coaching conversation or is it a management conversation? So making sure that first you have the right people in the right positions for the right reason, right? That's a people thing. And making sure that your best deals are going to your best reps. I'm sorry, it might be a little like not PC, but no, like let's have the best deals go to the best closers and have other people cut their teeth on less risky leads. And complete.
Yeah, I love that very sound advice. I think the comment around building a relationship with head of finance, whether that's CFO, VP of finance, like you described, is very, very important. It's guess what? Every single deal that any rep closes, it needs to get approved by finance somehow, some way. Typically in the multi-threading that I was talking about earlier, while I'd say most heads of finance, most people that own the budget, they're always sitting out there as neutral, right? Everybody relies on your education through your champions, through your supporters to say, go sell this deal internally for me. But I think the overall theme of this webinar is how do we accelerate enterprise deals and how do we increase the close rate? So in doing so, when budgets typically take, could be a week, could be a month, could be a quarter, for finance to get that budget approval, having that conversation with your champion to say, let's co-develop a really strong point of view to go to finance now before we get to stage 4, stage 5 of that opportunity. So there aren't any surprises when they come and say, okay, you have this budget approved, but what is this specifically for? What are the ROI metrics behind this technology, this training, or whatever you're selling to them? Being proactive with that finance is an amazing strategy and tactic, and one that I love to hear that statistics that building that relationship is really crucial and something I would recommend for everyone on the call to take in. So let's move along to one of the final session or one of the final sections before wrapping up here, which is ultimately closing the deal. And where I want to come at this is everybody on this call has been part of a forecast call somehow, some way, whether that's revenue operations listening in, whether it's a rep that's delivering your forecast, hopefully without a long-winded story behind it, or whether that's coming from a sales leader or seat from Steve's seat being the CEO of the company. I'd love to hear from you both just around closing and how you as a sales leader, revenue operations leader, CEO, does kind of your internal scoring and evaluates if a deal will close at one, the dollar amount that it's being projected at, two, the timeline that it's looking to close. And I guess I'll leave it at those two. But Steve, Jackie, any perspective on just overall scoring and how you personally evaluate deals or your company evaluates the score of those deals?
Well, there's all sorts of metrics, right? Like what you're talking about. And I actually love, we were talking about Gong in the chat, like Gong, and I think Outreach does this too now, like with the Kaya. Like, and I remember Insight Squared used to do this, where it would actually tell you whether or not certain deals were about to close or not. They use their little custom proprietary, and surprisingly, they were right a lot.
Mm,
Something that I like to do is make sure like you have the personal impact. Like who your main stakeholders, do you know what is at stake for them? Like the I what is their ideal outcome? Are they getting a raise? Are they getting a promotion? Are they trying to make their career so they can go solo? Like what is it? What is the real reason that we're engaged here? Because it's probably not something ROI or cost reduction. Like
mm,
there's always a personal, there's always a personal impact reason. And I was hearing earlier today, like it was like the information economy and then the attention economy. Well, some people are saying it's now the relationship economy, where everyone's bombarded. You can get anything you want, but it's like who do I listen to? So building that relationship and knowing like what's at stake for those people and being that sounding board. Do you know how rare it is for someone to listen, to like actually deeply listen? Yeah, you won't be able to get rid of them.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Thanks, Jackie. Steve, any perspective on just scoring, how you personally evaluate deals or pipeline?
Yeah, these deals at the enterprise level, a deal has there's snowflakes and each one's different and has, some are some are a perfect fit, some are a lot of times a customer wants two things and you're just one of them. It's because we're in a world of we're an add-on to a CRM, right? So a lot of times people are looking for their whole CRM ecosystem to work better, and and they know that routing and mapping is a piece of what they need, but they usually the decision maker at that level that we're talking to actually wants us and prolific, or I'm use it as an example because you guys are here, but they often have these are our problems, and you're never the whole. You are very rarely, any one little app is very rarely the whole answer to all their CRM challenges or to making their team more effective. So in terms of evaluating a deal, and what I personally think the probability of closing is, I think there's a lot of soft skills in that, and kind of how many deals you've seen, and I personally put a number on all the deals once a month, when all the important deals. I mean, not little deals, but like the enterprise deals. I'll have a conversation with the rep, and a column for me in the spreadsheet is what is the probability that I think. I don't ask them what they think. I go
Mhm.
with what I think, and that helps me project what I think, what the overall probability is. And but I'm pulling on there's a lot of variables in that equation in terms of what can you do to improve all of this. If I were going to give one piece of advice on improving your close ratio and doing better in your negotiations, and increasing the probability of closing a deal in the first place, I think this really, you set a lot of the stage from your early calls or even your first call with a prospect. You want to make sure you're asking the right questions up front during your discovery process that will allow you to understand the value that the customer is going to get from your solution to a detailed level that you're going to be able to put an actual dollar value on what they're going to get from your solution. So we don't have to do a whole, ROI analysis like an MBA or anything, but it's like if you can walk them through and get to like I think this is, like, get them saying, I think this is worth this much a month to us, or this much a quarter to us, or this much a week for us, whatever it is. If you can get them to a point where they're seeing the value in terms of, I'm going to close this much more, or I'm going to save this much more cost, depending on what your product is, then throughout the process later, like when you're giving a proposal, when you're talking to other people that are involved in the process, you can point back to that analysis, point back, you should get it written down on a spreadsheet, right? Or however, don't just put it on the back of a napkin, put it in something that's shared and can be pointed back to in the proposal, in other conversations. And then even in the negotiation at the end, that can be a very useful time. If they're asking for big concessions, you can point back to that and hold firmly in your position with confidence, being like, hey, I think we came to the conclusion this is worth $500,000 a year to you guys. The price is $50,000 a year, so it's a tenth. So, is it really more important that we get a 10% discount on this thing, or is it really more important that we throw resources at this to get it deployed and up and running in the next 3 weeks?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's my piece of advice on that one.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Thank you both for the insights. And yeah, as we wrap up here, first off, just wanted to thank you both, Jackie and Steve. Really strong advice throughout today. I've learned a lot. Gonna take a decent amount of what you guys have shared and taught me today to our selling organization. But just in closing, is there one thing maybe that, and maybe you've already hit on it today, so just reiterating what you've already stated, but anything that you would recommend everyone listening into this call, just that they do right away to start improving how they either create, progress, and convert their pipeline through the different stages. Jackie, I'll tee you up, but I love what you said about kind of the shift around relationship first, which is how sales once was. Then the SaaS boom happened, and it was a very predictable process as to how you were going to be sold technology, which I think is what's sparking kind of that shift back to relationship first and coming in and caring. But anything to add on to that, or anything else that you'd like to add that you would recommend for everyone that's listening to do right away?
Yeah, my number one thing is take a step back and look at the entire revenue engine, right? So the thing that you think is on fire, it might not be, right? And only fix what is the biggest constraint, because once that's fixed, you'll have a whole new set of problems.
I love it. Steve, over to you with any final words before wrapping up here.
Um, I guess I think I'm trying to think if there's a one genius behavior that I would recommend here, but I guess if I could say one thing, just pick up the phone and
Mm, I love it.
get people on the phone. It's hard to reach decision makers. You know, I think it's harder to connect with people than it used to be. It's a very noisy world now compared to when I started my career. But I think people over rely on written messaging, um, and even more than picking up the phone, get in front of people, sit down, get to know your customers. That if you want to compress a sales cycle, get on a plane, get in your car, get in front of people, because you can learn more in taking someone out to dinner, or even getting breakfast with them than you can learn in a ton of meetings or phone calls or emails. It's just you can really shorten a sales cycle. You can really make things happen faster and better.
I love it. And the reason I love it is because naturally, all salespeople, whether you're ahead of your number, whether you're behind your number, right at your number, there's worry day to day. There's worry of what's going on when you don't have that next meeting scheduled. There's worry behind, well, what are they thinking? Are they being truthful to me in the deal cycle, and it's going to close at this amount on this date? And the only way to control over analyzing your pipeline, which you can't over analyze your pipeline, but you can worry about it. But how you overcome that worry is taking it within your own hands, picking up the phone, sending that text message, doing whatever you need to do to give yourself that peace of mind that I did everything that I could to control this deal, which is the ultimate theme around closing these enterprise deals at a higher clip and progressing them at a faster rate. And at the end of the day, I think you both hit on fantastic things. Building that relationship, and the best way to build that relationship is to show you care, coming in with that point of view while you're driving that meaningful activity. So thanks again to both of you. I thought it was amazing content. Like I said, I learned a lot today. Hopefully all of the folks that joined today's call learned a lot today. Like I mentioned at the beginning, if you guys have any follow-up questions for us, please ping all three of us on LinkedIn. Would love to communicate offline. And yeah, hope everybody has an amazing rest of the day. You will receive this webinar. Sounds like you'll get some follow-up collateral from the group. And yeah, just thanks everyone for your time and spending 52 minutes with us today. And hope you have an awesome rest of the week. Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Steve.